She thought my jackpot meant she'd never have to work again. The lottery ticket sat crumpled in my jacket pocket for 3 days before I remembered to check the numbers. When I realized I'd won $8.7 million, my first thought wasn't about quitting my job or buying a mansion. It was wondering how many people would suddenly become my best friend. What I didn't expect was discovering that my girlfriend of 7 months had already planned our entire future with money that wasn't hers. Nicole had always been intense about our relationship in ways that made me uncomfortable. We'd broken up twice already because of her extreme clinginess and constant accusations that I was cheating. She monitored my social media obsessively, demanded detailed explanations of where I'd been and who I'd talked to, and somehow turned every conversation into an interrogation about my loyalty. But I stayed because I was terrified of being alone, and Nicole had convinced me that no one else would put up with my quirks. The past 2 months had been relatively peaceful, which should have been a red flag. Nicole's behavior had mellowed from suffocating to merely overwhelming, and I'd mistaken that improvement for actual change. But winning the lottery revealed who she really was underneath all the declarations of love and commitment. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely, showing me the calculating stranger I'd been dating. I should quit my job, Nicole announced the day after I'd told her about the win, like she was discussing what to have for lunch. She was sitting on my couch, already making herself comfortable in what she apparently saw as our shared windfall. There's no point in me working when you have all this money. The casual entitlement in her voice made my skin crawl. We weren't married, barely knew each other outside of our toxic relationship patterns, and she was already planning to become my dependent. Why would you quit your job? I asked, genuinely confused by the logic. The money is mine, Nicole. We've been together 7 months. Her face went through several expressions before settling on injured disbelief, like I just told her the sky was falling. If I had won that much money, I'd have given you whatever you needed without a second thought, she said, voice trembling with manufactured hurt. That's what people do for those they love. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost felt guilty for not immediately offering to support her permanently. She was reframing my reluctance to hand over millions as evidence that I didn't love her enough. The same woman who'd spent months accusing me of infidelity was now positioning herself as the more generous, loving partner because she would hypothetically share imaginary winnings with me. Every conversation became a battlefield where Nicole painted herself as the victim of my newfound wealth. She'd loved me when I was nobody, she reminded me constantly, implying that I owed her compensation for her past tolerance. The same woman who'd made my life miserable with jealousy and control was now rewriting history, casting herself as the loyal supporter who deserved to be rewarded with permanent financial security through my jackpot. The accusations escalated daily. You're already planning to dump me now that you're rich, she sobbed during what should have been a celebratory dinner. I was so stupid not to see it before. You just want someone younger and prettier to spend your money on. The irony was staggering. She was the one trying to fundamentally change our relationship dynamic by becoming financially dependent on me. But somehow I was the villain for having boundaries about my own windfall. The final conversation lasted 4 hours, circling through the same arguments while Nicole alternated between tears and rage. She called me manipulative and emotionally abusive when I wouldn't agree to support her indefinitely, accusations that left me scrambling to defend myself before I realized she was just projecting her own behavior onto me. When I finally said we were finished, she grabbed her things and stormed out, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the windows. The harassment started immediately afterward. Text messages about how no one would ever love me like she had, how money had corrupted me, how I'd regret losing someone who'd cared about the real me. Voicemails where she sobbed about needing my help and having nowhere else to turn, trying to guilt me into rescuing her from consequences of her own behavior. Then came the night when police knocked on my door, responding to reports of a domestic disturbance that never happened. The officer was confused when I explained I'd been alone all evening, and we both realized someone had called in a false report. When I mentioned my recent breakup, he nodded knowingly and suggested I document any future incidents for potential harassment charges. She began systematically adding my friends on social media, claiming it was a free country when I confronted her about it. The calculated approach to maintaining access to my life was chilling. She was building a network to monitor my activities and potentially manipulate my relationships. Every boundary I set became a challenge for her to overcome. Every attempt at distance met with escalating tactics designed to force my attention back to her demands. Looking back, the lottery money didn't change me. It revealed who Nicole had always been underneath her declarations of love. Someone who saw relationships as transactions, who measured affection in financial terms, who believed that 7 months of dating entitled her to a lifetime of support. The money had simply given her permission to show her true colors, and those colors were uglier than I'd ever imagined through our turbulent relationship. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't winning millions of dollars. Sometimes it's discovering who really loves you and who just loves what you can do for them. Nicole had made that distinction crystal clear, and for that clarity alone, every penny of my jackpot was worth the harassment and false police reports that followed our breakup.